Hey everyone, just wanted to take a second to review some factoring that we'll need throughout chapter 4, and then it will continue throughout the rest of the year. So factoring is a very important skill that we'll need as we continue to go through our math journeys. Today we'll look at two types of factoring: factoring out a greatest common factor, a GCF, and then factoring trinomials where your a term is 1. So we'll start with the GCF. So here's an example of looking for a GCF that is a common factor between both terms that are in your polynomial. A factor is any number that divides your number evenly. So with numbers, we can see that 14 and 35 both have a common factor of 7. But with variables as well, we also have an x to the fourth and an x. So we're going to look at the most that they would have in common is 1x, because this is only an x to the first power. So we could also factor out an x. So with the variables, you're looking for the least exponent that you can factor out actually. So as I look at this problem, I looked at the numbers first. I've got a 7 that goes into 14. I've got a 7 that goes into 35. I've got an x I could factor out of 4, x to the fourth, excuse me, and then I got an x I could factor out of that x. To rewrite this, we're going to actually write it like the distributive property. We'll start by putting the GCF out in front of the problem, 7x, and then we'll open up a set of parentheses to put the remaining polynomial that cannot be factored in those parentheses. So when you divide 14 by 7, it becomes 2. When you take x to the fourth and divide out an x, it lowers your power by 1, so that's going to be x to the third. To get to a power, you're going to hit Shift 6. That'll give you an exponent. So now we have x to the third. Hit arrow over to get out. And then we're going to have a minus 5, because 35 divided by 7 is 5. And no x, because the x was divided out. And we will hit enter, and we should show that we've got that one correct. So we'll take a look at one more. So we head to problem 2. We got a 28 plus 16x to the fourth. Right now, this one is not written in standard form. Usually, you should have your variable part first. We'll do that when we make our answer. But first thing you should look at is the numbers. So is there anything that 28 and 16 have in common? And then you're looking for what is the greatest factor they would have in common. Probably notice that they have a 2 in common because they're both even, but then we can say that they also have a 4 in common because they're both divisible by 4. Then we would shift to look at the variables. There are no variables in the term with 28, so there are no common factors in the variables. So now we're ready to rewrite our polynomial with our greatest common factor factored out. So we've got our greatest common factor out front, parentheses, 16 divided by 4 is 4, x, hit shift to the fourth, and then we're going to have a plus 7. And now make sure you get out of that exponent, plus 7, close off our parentheses. And we show that we have that greatest common factor of 4, and we can rewrite our solution. I don't really like how they have it written. You should always put your highest degree term first in your polynomial and then go each successive degree lower. It's a good idea, no matter what type of polynomial you're looking to factor, is always find out that greatest common factor, because it's going to make your numbers less and make them a little bit easier to work with. So sometimes it's overlooked, but take a look and see if you can factor out something to make the problem simpler. Second thing we'll look at is factoring trinomials that have an a term of 1. So the trinomials that we see will always be factored into two binomials. You'll have two separate parentheses with your binomials. Binomials have two terms that would FOIL out to equal that term. So to talk about factoring, we got to understand how binomials are multiplied. So we have x plus 2, x minus 6. We're going to use FOIL, so we multiply our first terms, x squared. We multiply our outside terms, which gives minus 6x. We multiply our inside terms, which is going to give us plus 2x. And our last terms, which gives us minus 12. And your outsides and insides will always be like terms when we have a binomial, whether the x is a first degree term there. And we're going to get then negative 6 plus 2 is going to give me negative 4x. And what you'll notice is the pattern that happens is that the number terms in your binomials, the 2 and the -6, I'm thinking that is negative, are going to always multiply to your last term, and then the 2 and the -6 are always going to add to this middle term. And you just need to add the x in to make it that -4x. And since you're just always multiplying, when you're multiplying 2x is x squared, that first term is always going to be an x squared. So these trinomials that have an a term of 1, so there would be like a 1 in front of there, are always going to factor in this way. So as we look at this first problem, we're now going to take a look at how can I multiply to -8 and at the same time add to -2. Well, I'll take x minus 4 and then x plus 2, because -4 times 2 is going to get me to -8 because I have to have a positive and a negative, and then -4 plus 2 is going to give me -2. So we're going to get our trinomial to factor into x minus 4, x plus 2. And there we can see we got it correct. Now we're going to see some feedback of different ways you can do this, but I like to just look at that last term. I even sometimes just put in some factors to kind of see, like 4, -2. Yep, that's going to multiply to -8, but it's not going to add there, so I need to make this negative, and then I need to make that one positive. Now those two, -4 and 2, are going to multiply to -8. -4 and 2 are going to add to -2. So you go out and you search for videos on factoring. You're going to find all different methods. You just need to find the one that works best for you, and then you should be able to kind of hone in on that strategy to be the best factor that you can be. Here we'll take a look at another problem. We need to multiply to -70 and then add to 3. So we got to start thinking of factors of 70, which can be kind of hard. You got 14 and 5, you've got 35 and 2, but those are too far apart to add to 3. But we could use 10 and -7, because 10 times -7 is -70, and they're 3 apart, and 10 is positive, so that's going to make it a plus 3x. So we submit that answer, which was, let me find it here, right here, x minus 7, x plus 10. So those are the two numbers that multiply to -70, add to 3, and there would be our result. So hopefully this video helps, kind of reminding you how to multiply two binomials to get a trinomial, and then how to factor, and then also factoring out that GCF. So you now should be ready to practice, and maybe you will actually get a problem that is similar to the one we just did. Who knows? We'll see ya on day 2.